The Suzuki GS1100E, to me, is the bunker buster of 80s bikes. When the bikes were all tuned for drag racing, they were geared for drag racing. The whole idea was to get the best quarter mile at any price. Every manufacturer tried to do that. I think Suzuki was more successful than most, and the GS1100E was one of the best efforts at making a bunker buster engine that you could take to the drags. You could double the horsepower, you could buy accessories for it, you could go out and do hole shots all day long. The engine was reliable as a stone, and in my case, I have 80,000 miles on my bunker buster, and I'm hoping I get 100. Well, time will tell, and we'll see. Now, in the early 80s and during that era, there were bikes with more cylinders, there were bikes with less cylinders. But I think the manufacturers all kind of eventually figured out that for that point in time, an inline 4-cylinder, even firing, was the way to go. And Suzuki had one of the best. And when I think back, when I first got the bike and went for that first ride, I opened that throttle after the bike was all broken in, went out on a highway and said, let's go through the gears. I was shocked how good it was. It was really an exciting bike to ride. Now, a stock GS, and Joe Padula confirmed this with me, was definitely geared for drag racing. It's geared lower. It has a 15-tooth counter sprocket. I have since replaced the whole drivetrain on my bike with a 530. That's 16 in the front, 40 in the back. It's an overdrive gearing. And because of the way I ride and where I ride, that seems to work well for me. But for sure, if I was drag racing, I might even go down a tooth. I don't know. I'd have to do some experiment. I have to ask Jim Skinner. He knows all about that stuff. But anyway, even stock, the whole idea of this bike was right out of the showroom. You could break it in and go paint your number on the side of it and go to the drag races. And that's what entertained people the most. In the early 80s, in this era, the magazines, everywhere you look, it was all about turning the low ET. And this bike did it pretty well. Now, what's happened though, and the reason I call it the bunker buster, it's gone on to have a career, not only this engine, but of course other Suzuki engines, the Hayabusa engine. They seem to dominate the world of drag racing. Maybe the Kawasaki riders don't agree with that. But, and there was some great, by the way, great drag bikes at Ruts Hut this year. If you haven't seen the Ruts Hut video, boy, check it out. There were some beauties there, absolute beauties. And of course, they were all Kawasaki's though, so, But anyway, I always like to look back at that time. I always look at my bike as like a frozen in time, that I was tempted to at times do all these mods to it and do custom this and that. I was very restrained in the way I did it. And I had other exhaust systems. I still have 3 exhaust systems for this bike. I really do like the 86 the best. The only downside of it is if you do a conversion, you've got to make a bracket. I made mine out of carbon fiber, or you could probably make it out of steel. It's a very complicated bracket to make. And I'm sure I already have a video on how to make brackets out on the channel. May be helpful if you were wanting to do that. But that 86 exhaust has just a little more rumble in stock when you back off the gas. I love it. appreciate a GS1100E, you have to really, and I mean you really have to push it to the limit to see how good the bike really is. Now, modern tires, the Michelin, I have Michelin Commanders on the bike. I think they're the best. Joe has Avons, among other things, but modern tires, real grippy and with a more rigid carcass, really give the bike better handling. I know other people have done suspension mods. My bike is totally stock, and the suspension is still pretty good. I'm shocked. 80,000 miles and that suspension is not doing anything it shouldn't do. I don't see any reason to try even upgrading it at this point in time. And of course, the key thing for me that may not be important to other people, I love the styling. The styling of this bike, I don't even know how to describe it. Timeless. And I look at a lot of other bikes, are close but no cigar, and you'll see a bike that you really think is great, and all of a sudden it's got one item or one thing or one this, that, or the other, or the color choice is terrible, or something else. Now that's the overdrive gearing. Thank you, Vlad. That overdrive gearing has worked perfectly for me because, again, I'm driving about 30 miles each way to get out to the riding area, and that engine, it just loves being on Route 80 with overdrive gearing. And it is that bunker buster engine that makes this bike so very special. I often wonder if Suzuki didn't do such a good job on that engine years ago, if the bikes would have still been so iconic and so collectible. And they are getting harder and harder to find as time goes by. So I would suggest anybody that really and truly wants one, like Henry Hawk or Scott, you can't wait another 10 years. I don't think they're going to be available in 10 years. Anyway, I am so glad I got mine. I was tempted so many times to hot rod the bike out or do this or do that. And again, I always resisted that. And the thing that always went through my mind is I just loved the bike so much. I loved it. I would have it for the rest of my life. Now, when I was younger, who the heck knew I was going to live to be 80 years old, especially being I was such a hooligan years ago. Of course, I'm a gentleman now. All the rough edges are worn off, but back in the day, that was not the case. And boy, as I look back now at all the 43 years, over 80,000 miles, you can still jump on this bike, scare the heck out of yourself at will. And with the modern tires that are available, the bike handles very well in my case. I think it certainly is not the worst handling of the 80 bikes by far, and it's certainly, by any measure you can measure it, it's certainly not the slowest for sure. And at the end of every ride, I always try to think Suzuki got so many things right about this bike. It does so many things well. It stood the test of time. Unfortunately, like every day we ride, it's time to get home. Now, to all the collectors and all the enthusiasts that are still keeping these older bikes alive, especially this one, and the RDs, the guys that are keeping these old bikes alive, this is a part of motorcycling history. And it's a critical part. It's a part where if they had never made the progress back in this time and never been able to meet the crazy government regulations, we may not have any of the bikes we have today. And I think of all of the times that they tried different things with these bikes and all of the things that didn't work and how the bikes evolved into what we have today. But even with all the modern bikes, with all the modern safety features and all the excessive horsepower and everything, there's still one thing, is you look back at this bike, and I do it all the time, and I think, Way back 43 years ago, 80,000 miles ago, I bought this bike brand new, and it's still part of my life. Actually, it's still part of me. Now, if you're new to our channel, we have a very, very eclectic channel. One of the new features we have now is some of the videos are grouped into groups that you can access all the videos for one category in one mouse click. And it should be very convenient and very handy. Just check out the feature on the main screen playlist. And thanks to everybody for supporting the channel. We appreciate your support, and it makes this channel possible with all the things we do, the painting, the wheels, the polishing. And please take a second or two and hit the like button. And thanks everyone for watching.